After travelling all around Europe last year, I finally decided to visit Paris this summer. Our first day in Paris started off with some chaos. Despite all the stress of leaving my camera at our last hotel, I couldn't help but still stand in awe at Paris's beautiful architecture. We had a chaotic morning. What happened? Can you describe to the camera?
Food poisoning.
And then we left our camera in the hotel. We're taking things slow because Felix has food poisoning, probably from something he ate in Spain, like the fresh oysters or maybe the anchovies. I don't know, it was something that I thankfully didn't have myself, so I'm not suffering from food poisoning, but it basically means we need to take it really slow today. I also, the second disaster of the day, left my camera in my hotel room in London, and we realised too late because we were already halfway to the train station when we realised that the camera wasn't there. So I need to call the hotel and make sure the cleaners don't throw out the camera with the trash, because we stored the camera in a very incognito brown paper bag, so I'm scared that they'll just chuck it. This is stressful. Cafe Flora is always the first cafe that comes up when you search up cafes in Paris, and I must say it is slightly overpriced for what you get. Got some expensive butter and toast and some tea. Alright, let's dive in.
Alright, I need extra tea.
Yes, extra tea. Since we weren't quite satisfied with the meal, we decided to get some crepes before I headed on a walking tour. So we got our crepes and we're just eating it along this corner. The tour took us all around the Latin Quarter of Paris, which is where a lot of students live, as the University of Sorbonne is here. It's called the Latin Quarter because students used to be taught only Latin back in the early days of the university, so you'd hear Latin all around the streets. This area had a lot of interesting pre-Haussmann architecture. Haussmann, by the way, was hired by Napoleon to modernise and redesign the entire city. After the tour finished, I visited the famous Shakespeare & Co. bookstore. There were so many books, but I ended up buying one book by George Orwell. On the way home, I grabbed my first croissant in Paris, which was fantastic. You like grocery shopping in Paris? It's such a fun experience. Actually, grocery shopping in any foreign city is so fun. Just seeing the little local snacks they have and the layout of the grocery store is so different from Australia. I loved exploring and I got a bit overwhelmed. Anyways, afterwards I went to the Luxembourg gardens, which were immaculately landscaped. The flowers were blooming, people were chilling all over the lounge chairs, and although the weather wasn't ideal, it was such a nice place to stroll around in the afternoon. The next day we headed to the arrondissement where the Eiffel Tower is located, and it's quite far from our hotel, but well worth the trip. Luckily there weren't too many tourists in the area. This day was quite packed and in hindsight very tiring. We got a really good spot by the Eiffel Tower. I can't believe it's basically empty today. But after seeing the Eiffel Tower from up close, we went to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. Okay, so we bought tickets for 12:15 and now we just need to figure out how to cross the road. The top has a really unique view of Paris because you can see just how neatly it is designed with the wide tree-lined avenues all leading towards the centre, which is the Arc de Triomphe. On a very nice street looking for our bakery at the moment. We're in the 17th arrondissement trying to find a bakery for lunch.
Good place.
Every corner I turn, I see a building that is just, wow, look at that. So after going to the top of the Arc de Triomphe, we started searching for some dessert near the area, and we found this place that was known for its macarons, and it had such an overwhelming selection. One of my big regrets on this trip was not trying more pastries, because obviously Paris is known for its pastries. Look how colourful these macarons are. Anyways, I think we got the pistachio flavour, or that might have been the flavour of the cake we got. That's our order. And obviously it was just very delicious. The cake though was a little too strong for my liking, but who am I to complain? Anyways, afterwards we got this chicken wrap, and that's when I started feeling a bit sick. So when we were strolling through the Luxembourg gardens on the way home, I knew that something was a little bit off. Turns out I probably had a bad stomach bug, so yeah, I went home and just slept for the rest of the day and didn't go out again. I actually ended up vomiting multiple times that day, so it was really unpleasant, but I did get it all out of my system and recovered very fast for the next day. Yes. I am currently recovering from my illness. He is also recovering from his illness. So the next day we still weren't feeling super well, so we decided to take it slow and took a leisurely stroll by the river. Also on that day we almost got scammed. Basically we were at this metro station and this man offered to help buy us tickets before another Chinese man walked past us and basically told us in Chinese to watch out, and just took an Uber to the Louvre, which is very, very impressive. I can see why it's one of the most visited spots in Paris. It was just a huge complex, and there was so many people that we just didn't bother lining up and going to see the famous paintings. I know the Mona Lisa is in there, but if you have ever seen pictures of the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, you'll know that you basically don't see her because there's just a sea of people in front. We ended up going somewhere much more calm, which was the Palace of Versailles, and it is a beautiful square in the Marais district. There's a lot of couples having picnics there. It was very cute. Then visited the Victor Hugo Museum, which is by the square, and his house was really interesting. It had a lot of paintings that he'd collected over the years. By the way, Victor Hugo is the author of Les Miserables and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is the Marais district, and similar to the Latin Quarter, it had a lot of buildings from the pre-Haussmann era. We walked through the little alleyways and found a lot of cool spots, except it was a bit too close to dinner for us to sit down and eat. Unfortunately, just as we were heading back, it started to rain, so we decided to go into the Modern Art Museum, and the art museum has a really cool escalator that has great views over the city and all the key landmarks. We are up on this terrifying escalator, but you can see a beautiful Paris from here. At night, because I was feeling a little better, I decided to go on this night cruise, and I think this is one of the best ways to see the city. The thing I was surprised about was the amount of people who were eating by the bank late into the night, and drinking as well. I think public drinking is actually legal in France, which explains it. Along our cruise we just saw so many people sitting along the bank. And lastly, we saw the Eiffel Tower light up, which was really cool. And because we went pre-Olympics, there was also the rings. And then we had some crepes before calling it a night. The next day we had a big day planned at Versailles, so we started the day with some ramen, and we were looking forward to this place because apparently it is the best ramen in the city. I don't know about the actual taste of the ramen, the ambiance was really nice, and broth was a very light broth if that's what you're into, but it definitely wasn't the best ramen I've ever had. But then again, I have pretty high standards for ramen because I'm comparing it to the ramen we had in Tokyo. We then headed on to the hour or so journey to Versailles. We took this double-decker train, and it's one of the first double-decker trains I've taken in Europe, apart from maybe Amsterdam. We saw some cute little villages along the way. So we are just walking towards Palace of Versailles, and it's just crazy how big the structure is. You can see the gold from here. And there's also so many tourists in their tour buses. I think we picked a bad day to come because Sundays is usually when a lot of the tour buses come. The history of Versailles is absolutely fascinating, especially the king who directed the building of it, Louis, or the Sun King. He was definitely a narcissist / egomaniac. There were so many self-portraits of him all throughout. Anyways, it was a bit hard to appreciate the building because there was just so many people and you felt like you were just being herded along like cattle. This is the Hall of Mirror, and at the time it was really impressive because of the amount of mirrors there were, and mirrors were very expensive to manufacture back in the day. And this is the Queen's Chamber, and one creepy fact I learnt was that people used to watch the Queen sleep or watch her bed routine. The last hall we went to was this Hall of Battles. I forgot the French name, but basically it displays art from all of France's battles over history. So all these paintings are of various battles that France has been in. It's just insane to think of like how many battles. These are like some gruesome images here. So I think originally these were apartments that were converted into a gallery of France battles. That takes us to the end of the trip. Bit of a short one because I spent half the trip sick, but I will hopefully be back soon to see all the things I didn't get to see.